The last topic is FSBA Superintendent Search. Materials provided by the FSBA are in the folder. For the intent of the rest of the meeting, I am going to hand it over to Ms. Messina, and then we have an item that was wished to be addressed at the end also. So, Ms. Messina, you have the...
Thank you, and I believe you all know me, and I think you all met Dr. Vogel. This is Mr. John Reichert. He's part of our, what we like to refer to our three-legged stool that works for purposes of superintendent search. John has the background I mentioned, or Bill mentioned before. He's got the HR background, he's got the superintendent background, and I've got the school board member background. So between the three of us, we kind of have, we hand things off to one another. We work pretty much interchangeably, but we're going to be the team that works with you. First thing I want to reference is the key decisions for school boards document that you received, not because we're going to go through it necessarily today, but you could put it on your bedside table and you could, spend some time looking at it. Just know that throughout the process, we're going to walk you through all of these steps. So when it says, make decisions on this and this and this, we will parse out those decisions along the way, because if we tried to do them all today, it would just be too many, and we need to get some first ones taken care of, then some others, then some others. We'll start with the single most important decision that you're going to have to make, and that is the board needs to identify one person that will serve as your staff liaison to the superintendent search team. So when we have a question or when we need some logistics on something, that's the person we go to. I don't want to make an assumption and assume that it would be Tammy, but in many districts it would be a chief of staff. It might be, some districts use their attorney, other districts use their board or superintendent clerk, whatever. I'm not sure what your exact title is anymore, but so we need one point person so that we don't keep hearing from a bunch of different people and nobody gets left out.
Would you guys like Paul and Tammy to arm wrestle for her?
I'll take it.
We could do it. I'm in favor of Tammy.
Tammy never drops the ball. Well, it sounded like you had like a whole booklet for whoever the person is.
Correct.
And it sounds like, this district staff liaison.
Yeah.
Some of this is going to tie into community public relations efforts, but I'm assuming like at that time she just loops Rustin or legal.
Yep.
Yes. So
The key liaison person will then, when those times come, we'll pull those people in appropriately, or we'll connect us to the right person. We'll set up a meeting, which is what she had set up for later this afternoon with some different staff members. As we go along, certain roles within your district will play a larger part. IT obviously is here today, and IT will play a very heavy role throughout when you do any meeting that you have related to superintendent, which is why we asked them to be here today. We strongly recommend that you record so that anybody can have access to it if they want to. The one thing related to a superintendent search that we like to remind districts about is this is the public school district. It belongs to the public. And as such, we want to make sure that the public knows how they can interact along the way. John's going to work with your IT department to start building out it's called a banana button on your main homepage, which is a big button that says superintendent search, click here, and then all the information kind of flows from there. John will take care of that directly with your communications staff. Things like that will be interfacing throughout, but all of it will be run through your liaison. Okay?
tag.
All right, congratulations. We're looking forward to working with you.
Your third job.
The next thing we like to start with is what we call our pre-search interview. And the reason we start with this is so that Bill, John, and I can get a really good feel for where the board believes they are on these topics. Not where Andrea thinks based on what she's been reading or talking to people about, but where the board thinks they are on these topics. So we're going to walk through it, and I'm going to kind of facilitate that conversation. It's really a conversation, so if you guys can just kind of participate and add in, we're not looking for formality. Bill and John may ask some clarifying questions. We're going to take some copious notes. The other thing we use this for is not just so we can understand where the board believes they are on these things, but people have already started reaching out to us asking questions about your opening. And so they ask us a lot of these questions. We want to be able to have an accurate answer, but we also want to be able to refer to the recording to people so they can watch it for themselves. Anybody who's interested in applying for your superintendent position has already started, I'm guessing, watching some of your past board meetings, will continue to watch your board meetings. They're interested to know how you support the superintendent, how you interact with staff, how you interact with each other, what kinds of, when there's a vote, how you move past a vote if it's a split vote. All of those things are things that candidates are starting to look at. And I think you all know, Bill talked about it when he was here, there are multiple openings across Florida and the nation right now. The people who are, knocking people out of the way to be superintendent is a smaller and smaller pool than we used to have. Right now, there's a number of people who would be poised to be a superintendent with whom we've all spoken, who say, I'm going to kind of wait a year or two and see if things die down a little bit with the education climate out there. So it is a competitive recruiting situation, and I just need you to be aware of that. That doesn't mean it's insurmountable, and it doesn't mean that it's a negative thing. It just is what it is right now, and I want to tell you the same thing that I've told the other districts. So we're going to start with your district guiding principles, your vision, mission, and beliefs. My question specifically is, you all have them, but how many people know about them? Does the community know about them? Do schools buy into them? How deeply ingrained are those things in your district community, internal and external?
I think our mission statement is probably the most visible. I mean, it's on, everybody comes for public
Every
comment.
public speaker mentions it.
Talks about it. It's right behind our heads, that's a thing that gets, and it's short. So it's something that gets quoted, used by staff or by the public pretty frequently. Somebody sent us a link. The one that has multiple, is that one is that the vision? You know what I'm talking about, Tammy?
It's more lengthy, I know.
Yeah, it has several bullet points. That one's
I don't know.
not as visible.
We don't even know what
Ms.
it's
Messina,
called.
you are going to get all of on that webpage, our strategic plans, all of that stuff, right? That's some
Yes,
sort
of course.
boilerplate stuff. that
I've already
we're
pulled
gonna
much
put
of it,
together.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So they'll have
Yeah.
tentatively what the
The question is, does the community know it? Does the community embrace it? Does the community, internal and external, know it?
I would make an argument that the community went and voted out the individual that was the chair of that. You know what I mean? So there's an argument that there may be a little bit of a difference that we need to discuss today as far as that direction.
I don't
That
think
makes
the
sense.
chair said that though. Okay, here it is. Vision, I don't think people know. It's not as short as our mission statement. Our mission statement is the thing that everybody knows, to serve every student with excellence as a standard. The vision statement says, Brevard Public Schools will serve our community and enhance student lives by delivering the highest quality education in a culture of dedication, collaboration, and learning. It's a great statement, it's just not something that people are familiar with. And then underneath, operational beliefs, that was the one I was looking at, and that has the bullet list. And again, not anything wrong with them, it's just not anything that anybody really sees regularly. I think they're listed, there's a brochure that we put out every year that has it on there, but it's not something that people are very familiar with.
And it took us like 8 hours to come up with that. I don't know if you remember.
Which one?
The vision statement.
When we did our master board training, no, we actually didn't come up with anything out of it. This was the one that we already had.
No, but we had worked it together. We were in the back of the boardroom. I'll never forget it. And it was like, what do you mean by that? Yeah, with master. What do you mean by that word? We're like, I don't know. What do you mean? What do we mean? We were all messing.
What do you mean? What do I mean? What do we mean?
Yeah, it was rough. It was a rough sentence.
Okay, so that gives us an idea that there are some pieces that are more well-known than others. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Okay. So then when,
And I think at some time in the future, you'll want to take a look at that with new board members and take a look at it. But for now, no.
Yeah, we already discussed before,
Yeah,
maybe
that's
you
what I
guys
heard,
came
yeah.
in that we would be re-looking at all of those with the new board.
yeah, when you get your new
New
superintendent.
superintendent comes in,
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
That's good.
So then when we move to the strategic plan, I want to talk about this in different categories. What would you say are the priorities that are either in progress or completed from the strategic plan that currently exists? And then we'll talk about the unfinished ones and emerging issues that you may need to consider. But the ones that are in progress or completed, priority strategic plan items.
We have to go back through, there's several points under each one. things that people have finished, or, you know, and I wouldn't say it's ever, I don't think it's ever finished, because whenever they meet certain metrics, then that area is tasked with, okay,
Reset.
right, what's the next level? Okay, we reached 85%, now let's shoot for 90, how are we gonna get there?
We get updates and amendments pretty quick.
Right, and it's an annual process of continually, it's not a set plan, it is a living, breathing document that they're.
So what would you say are the 5, without having to read them, Katie, off the top of your head, what are the top 5 priorities of the strategic plan?
Exceptional workforce.
Pardon?
Exceptional workforce.
Exceptional workforce, that's one of the categories, I know that for sure.
Is that what you're asking us? I'm sorry. I don't know if that's what you're asking.
I'm just asking you what the priorities are. I want to know if you guys know, and I want to know if you
Well,
believe
under
it.
that, recruitment and retention of staff.
Okay.
Community engagement's one of them. I think community engagement's one of them.
Community engagement.
The issue that we have is that whatever's inside of there may be changed a little bit because of the 2 new board members. We hadn't had time, so I feel bad like putting out things that we have inside of a strategic plan that they may want to have some sort of input in changing, if that makes sense.
Okay, well, that's fair when you get a new
But I
set of
think
board
that-
members to
yeah.
revisit and say, are we still
But-
committed to this?
But I think if you look at the overall strategic plan, it's not the actual subject area. I think we all agree that those are issues that we need to get to. What it is it's the under that subject where that might change. So we all want to have a massive community engagement. We all want to work on those strategic objectives to get workforce and innovation and stuff like that. We all want those things. It's just how that's going to play out under there. So I'm trying to tread a little bit lightly because I'm not sure we're giving you something with that.
It's a tactical
Well-
plan here.
Schiller keeps saying that it's a tactical plan rather than a true strategic plan is what he keeps saying, so.
It does seem that way. You know.
Thank you.
When it's,
It's very distinguished for what it's trying to do. Did it perfectly, but it's not a strategic plan. What the board was talking about earlier is where are you going to be 5, 10 years from now? That's the roadmap tactically to get to specific points with data points, who's responsible, and for yearly objectives. There's a big difference between George Bush's strategery and tactical. Where is the board going? What does it want to do over a period of time? And how do we get there? What's done there, from my judgment, when I've done these and I've also helped districts do it, that's the roadmap each year. But does it address where you want this place to be 10 years from now on your guidance? And that's just a fine differentiation, but I think this point that you've raised is critical. If you don't see it that way, that is true.
no, we do. I'll give you an example. In Monroe County, which you guys know is the Keys, they really had a long, hard conversation when they got a new superintendent, and they said, you know, what are our key measurements? What are our goals? And they determined graduation rate and 3rd grade reading. That's it. That's what they focus on. Those were the goals they gave the superintendent. And then the superintendent and his or her staff, it happened to be a female, built out how are we going to get to higher graduation rate and 3rd grade reading. That doesn't mean other things aren't important, but those were the things that those were their priority items in their strategic plan. And I'm curious what your priority goals are for this district.
Well, we have had, under the academic side, we have had for a while, or at least since I've been on the board, trying to reduce those achievement gaps.
Okay.
Among all our subgroups, especially, well, I would say especially in reading and math too. But, and that 3rd grade is kind of the starting level, but we're continuing to see them as they get older as well, so.
So let me ask you this, Katie. If what you're telling me, reduce the achievement gap between and among subgroups, has been a priority since you've been a board member, is that something that there's annual conversation around? Does the community know this is a big deal? Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at.
No, we do have, because when every time, twice a year, secondary and elementary leading and learning do presentations to let us know, here's our metrics, whether it's our progress. We were already doing progress monitoring before this data, but here's our progress monitoring data, here's where we are, and then they'll also introduce things that they're doing towards improving that goal. What support have they given different schools, and so yeah, we've definitely instituted. Of course, COVID came and some of the progress we made took a nosedive, but Definitely, it's been a focus. And actually, right after I got on the board was the first time they started doing that biannual reports to the board, semi-annual reports to the board.
Like, where are we and where are
Right.
we? Okay. What about new board members? What are your thoughts Priority goals for the district.
So my interpretation is we have a district strategic plan. Every department has a deep dive of said strategic plan and their area and roles and responsibility. They report to the board where they are in that progress, whether or not there needs to be amendments because goals have been met or new priorities have been developed because we've been in a very changing world. One of the top priorities was absolutely closing achievement gaps. I'm not going to say we were always there, but one of the main focuses was access to certain types of curriculum, like algebra, 8th grade, access to CTE programs, access to IB, AP.
So the acceleration type.
Yeah, really focusing on those subgroups and their ability to access programs was a huge priority for the district.
Okay.
And we've definitely seen significant results in those areas.
See, that's important for us to hear because that's the kind of stuff people will ask us about, and for us to know that the board's had conversation about that and gets updates on that and sees that as a priority. That's the kind of details.
And then what happens when people apply for positions, they go ahead and probably will give examples of how they have met that or how that's been a priority where they've been.
And another thing that was a huge focus and a lot of progress, but still so much area to grow, right? But constant updates is our technology. Technology in the classroom, technology access within the community, ways to have classrooms of the future. That was kind of a new update. Again, with COVID, it got a little, everything had to be revamped because to be realistic, we had a ton more money coming in that we could make advances in that strategic plan that we didn't see maybe happening for 3 years now came to fruition within 6 months. So there was constant changing and update, but we've always been kept abreast about those goals and where we're looking to head next. I think that probably, in my personal opinion, I think those would be the top 2 things that we talk the most frequently about.
Megan, Jean?
So I'm coming in from a different perspective, obviously. So not having been a teacher, not having been someone that's been in our district, really, when we talk about the strategic plan, I'll tell you my perception of it and the public's perception in my circle is that that's not something that's followed or looked at all. Right now, we've kind of lost our way as far as focusing on education in our schools, and that's really what our voters have said, is that they want our schools to go back to a curriculum-based focus on education of our children. So for me, I guess the strategic plan is it's a foreign concept because I'm just not there right at this moment. Really want to focus in on getting our schools back on track. I want a superintendent who's focusing on increasing our reading levels, on working on student achievement, increasing our graduation rates, things of that nature.
Where I would add is a couple of things, is being in the district now. I would like to see a superintendent, again, get back to the basics. I've heard that for quite some time. I think we maybe have listened to the noise outside of, well, this is what a school system needs, and this is what it might need. And I think we kind of lost our way a little bit on the basics. It could be 3rd grade reading, but the reading, writing, arithmetic, getting back to that. One of the big things is how to make our district competitive in the future. I mean, I think all districts are losing students to homeschool, to their alternatives. But I'm hoping this next person comes in is open and maybe even have a track record of, turning, or even has a vision of turning education on its ear to explore all avenues of what we might be exploring. Due to COVID, I mean, kids have found out that maybe learning from home worked out great for them, and we're letting these kids go off to colleges, which is completely flexible, but yet we're still stuck in the very much traditional school for the most part in our high schools. But I want someone that's open-minded to all sorts of ways we could educate these students of ours.
So you can sit down, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So if you could sit down and look at what the needs of our district are and what the needs of our community are. We have some great programs that look great on paper, but the fidelity of them is good, not great. So you have a retention and recruitment program to try to attract people, to try to keep them here. And we've had some of the highest numbers of turnover ever in the history of our school district, that almost half of our school teachers now are lower than 5 years of teaching. And we have the same amount of people in retention and recruitment to work with those new teachers as we had 5-10 years ago. You have a career and technical program that has some of the best career and technical programs across the county. We have all of them, but we don't have the fidelity of the students that are going in, getting the jobs in those for the community needs. So we have welders, we have construction people, we have manufacturers, but the amount of students that actually get those jobs past that are not very high. So you have a good system of technology in the classroom. We would argue that we've made a huge major commitment to one-to-one and other things. But how is that attributing to higher achievement levels? And that's the piece. So you have this bright, shiny object, organizational things that have been put together that are great. The problem is the fidelity of the output of what they do is lacking. So you have this good system, but it could be great. We have no reason why inside of this school district we should not be leading the nation. We are Kennedy Space Center. This is all of the engineers from here. But what we do is we create these programs and we can take it to great, unlike any other superintendent could, but we just haven't been able to get there. Vogel, you have a question, but I was at some more to go.
No, I think it's pretty amazing. Now, you passed your millage too, didn't you? 58%?
Yeah.
And that's pretty amazing for Brevard. And I think that's a vote of confidence for the school board and the direction you're heading.
We have a very strong, we're able to attract companies. So I sit on the Economic Development Council's executive board of directors. We negotiate all of the tax incentives for many of the companies that come here. They don't even care about the tax incentives. They ask us about the schools.
Right.
One of the reasons that we're able to attract many of the engineering companies, NASA, Grumman, all of them are able to move their people here is because of our school districts. But the problem is we went from an A to a B last year, right? So we have these great programs, but what's happening is that instead of being a part of our school district, we've seen students leave to go to homeschooling, students leave to go to private schooling. And so what happened is our numbers that used to be 68, 72,000 are lower than that now. And instead of having us attract the students into Brevard, we've actually been flatlined as the charter schools grow and while the private schools grow. So there's a definite opportunity for us to become great. It's just that's where our school district is. So any superintendent that looks at what we do, he'll say, oh my gosh, if I did X, Y, and Z, this would be the most amazing school district. So when you ask about what the strategic plan is and everything else, it's pretty good. The problem is that we build these great things, but we don't deliver to the greatness that we can. And I'm not saying we haven't gotten good, we can be great, if that helps.
So, I'm not going to debate. We're all going to have different opinions.
Of course.
Right? We are great. There's a reason why people are interested in coming here. It's not because we're a disaster and they want to come make it better. It's because we're great, and they recognize that. We're a great community. We're a great school system. We have a great staff. And I think something that's important throughout this process, and it's slightly getting off topic, but it isn't, to recognize is that said businesses that are all here and industry that are all here, they're uncomfortable right now because they still have to bring in staff in industry that are looking at a school system that isn't stable right now. Have these conversations. They're uncomfortable. Because let's be real, they're trying to recruit young people, new families or growing families with their students. That is going to be a challenge for any person coming in here. I don't care how amazing of a human being you are, you're gonna have to deal with that. There's gonna be a bump for a while. There's going to be someone who needs to be able to quickly establish those relationships with those businesses in our community. To give them faith and security because they're super uncomfortable right now. Major industries. when it comes to technology, I argue we aren't super great yet. And we recognize that. That's the one positive about our strategic plan and our IT department is we're well aware of our deficits. We should be top of the line being the Space Coast, and we're totally not. Is there a plan there? Yes. Did ESSER make some of those dreams come true faster? Absolutely. But we need somebody who understands that we aren't there yet in order to remain competitive, not only within our district, but within surrounding districts, not only for students, but for businesses who are recruiting new staff to come to their sites, but also to our staff. Our staff, like, you know, you come out of the university using all this technology and then you come into a classroom and you've got a whiteboard on the wall. Like, that's not a really fun working environment for you. You don't get to utilize your skills that you are trained on. And so that's another issue that we have to deal with when it comes to recruitment and retention is our technology affects that as well. So sorry, it's slightly off topic, but I think that's important to recognize in our strategic plan that builds into the characteristics and the skill set of a future superintendent coming forward.
No, that's important information, and it also actually segues us into the next thing, which is like, what are the emerging issues that we need to know about that exist in this community? I'll give you an example. When we were working with Polk, one of the emerging issues, they were getting ready to have a development of 20,000 homes, and it was just monumental growth. Some districts don't have that growth, but they have other emerging issues. So what are the emerging issues in this district?
We have old schools.
I'm sorry?
Our schools, a lot of our schools are older schools, so
Yeah.
that we will be facing some major construction needs in the future, I think.
So sitting on absolutely, we grew during the space race, so our buildings were built between the late 50s and early 70s, right? That was our big growth.
Sure.
The other issue we have is that I sit with many of the executives and CEOs of the major corporations from Grumman to Boeing to NASA to all of them. They have screamed that the only way we can get to the next level, and this is recently, within the last month, we need to create a pipeline of talent that will address the future needs of the country. If we're going to be launching out of here, we need to create the nurses, the teachers, the plumbers, the pipe fitters, everybody for space. And if we're not, then we're going to get overrun by the foreign states of Texas, Virginia, and others. So one of the things that they had said was the direction that we had gone in, where they were positive on, and where they wanted to do is set up a pipeline that went directly into feeding the needs of the community rather than creating some programs that may not be done to fidelity, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So the construction and the aging of our buildings is one. The career and technical piece of, addressing the needs of each one of our employers in the area is the other. And then, did you guys have any?
You passed the half-penny sales tax too, right?
Yeah, we had a renewal in 2020.
That's another real plus too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you've got a building plan, I'm sure.
And major infrastructure has been tackled with the previous round of it,
Right.
so now we're able to use this round for minor updates, aesthetic updates, things like that.
We cannot use our house in this round for new construction because it wasn't written into the referendum. But we, in the past we've talked about because our big building debt that we had from our boom years of 1996 to 2008, we still have over $300 million worth of capital debt.
So you got to pay that
Gotta
off.
pay that.
Right. That will be paid off in 2032. So it was, our previous superintendent said we probably are going to need, our half penny is only for 6 years at a time. We're probably going to need one more round. But then in the final round, if it is proposed by the board and approved by the voters from 2026 to 2032, with that, is that we could make that a
But this round
a
could
construction.
retrofit classrooms with smart boards instead of whiteboards.
Yes.
Right.
And it is
Okay.
doing that.
And so this is something anybody applying is going to say, what about community support? And when the person hears you passed, the voters have passed the millage
Right.
and they've got the sales tax, that's
Oh,
going to
yeah,
be a
yeah,
plus.
community support is
Right.
definitely there. Even when they don't support the board, they support the schools.
That's good.
Not unusual.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to know there's a new middle school that's being set to be built to meet the needs of one of our largest growing communities. But it's also important for them to be aware that we have another large community that's growing in the south area of the county that unfortunately is covered by the exact same amount of impact, or the same impact fee zone. So that's a challenge that has to constantly be monitored and prepared for within the next 5 years.
Yeah, the south area, Palm Bay area is,
Yeah.
which is South End County, is huge
needs an elementary school
Yeah.
that.
And which the county and the cities are dealing with infrastructure issues, because there's too many people for not enough roads and restaurants and all that kind of stuff. Right now, we still, listen, right now in the South area, we still have room in our schools, almost all of them except for Melham. But that could possibly change.
Quickly,
Yeah.
sounds like. What other
And
emergencies?
staff's like super aware of it. It's not an imaginary thing that someone has to solve a problem, and it's just something they need to be aware of that they're gonna have to constantly keep
Yeah.
them on.
Yeah.
We have two of the most highest achieving high schools in the country with our choice schools. So you have West Shore and Ridgewood, which will, if you look them up as choice schools, are number 35 in the nation, number 50-something in the nation. We have our Vieira High School, which is very high up there too, in the top 100 high schools in the nation. I mean, it's pretty incredible that we're able to take those schools and put them right there. So those are some of the positives. And when you talk about what Ms. Jenkins was speaking to about building a new middle school and stuff like that, we are going in the right direction.
I would say.
Other emerging issues, things that we.
Yeah, I just one other thing, and this is not necessarily a positive, but our free and reduced lunch rates are, especially with the economy the way it's been the last year, are continuing to rise, and so we're having more and more students and families.
What's your current percentage rate?
58, something like that, 50, mid-50s.
Mid-50s, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry to be super negative, but as well as our homeless students, our students in transition. Our ASC population is alarmingly above the average of the state. It always has been. I think something that's super, well, I don't know, because I haven't been in every county. It's unique to me since I came to Brevard, but and I have conversations with people, it seems like it's kind of unique to us. Just the layout of our county
Because you're so long and
Yeah.
skinny.
creates, unfortunately, serious discrepancies to serious equity gaps that are undeniable. And I think the past 4 years has been an acknowledgement of it, an attempt to go forward. I'm going to just speak very bluntly. The culture that we have right now of a war on education has stunted a lot of that growth. But it's a significant area of concern for many of our students that affect those numbers and rates that people care about when it comes to our academics. We've got an alarming amount of students and families that don't have access to internet or technology. Or they have it and we provide it, but it's not consistent. It's difficult. It's difficult. And so I think that's an alarming concern that no one really focuses on and talks about enough. I think it's a bigger problem that most people are really paying attention to.
Okay. Final emerging issues, anybody want to add? What's
The
going to
good
be?
thing is budget is not one of ours. We have a half penny in the millage that are successfully passed, and the millage is getting ready to be renegotiated so that you can figure, who's getting what portions, it's kind of guidelines out. That's a positive that we can look towards too, is that there's funding. Nobody's coming into a deaded school district, you know what I mean? So.
Well, you just sparked my memory of something really important, and I don't know if it's unique to us, it's probably not. Our self-funded healthcare system is a disaster, always has been.
It's actually in the black. It just turned into the black for the first time in
Right,
a while.
so-
Our school district has worked really hard on turning that corner, and it's actually floating right now.
But it's
not upside
important
down.
for whoever's coming in to recognize that that has been a long-term issue. We band-aided it.
Okay.
It's still going to be an issue you got to keep your thumb on and be prioritizing and having a plan going forward, because it's not going to sustain itself on its own.
So what are the relationships, areas to continue, areas to strengthen with the congressional delegation? Do you guys have a good relationship with your congressional delegation?
We do now.
Meaning Congressman Posey.
Pardon?
Meaning Congressman Posey, we only have one, well, not counting the senators, but Congressman Posey is our one. He represents all of us plus Indian River County and beyond.
And you guys have a good relationship with the congressman?
We do.
Absolutely.
What about the senator? I mean, any of the senators you guys have good relationships?
Rubio and Scott.
Yeah.
I was once in a room with Senator Scott. I don't know if anybody in our district has a personal relationship with him.
We share a stage with Rubio during campaign season this year. This is trying to
Making her out.
Yeah. So no, we have good relationships.
Senator Scott and I, his staff and I have worked on many projects together. If there
Yeah,
was-
usually it would be staff more than the actual
If there was
senators.
if there was a need, we could definitely have things happen, but being that they're state senators or U.S. senators, you know what I mean, their time. But they've always had a back door. We had the All-American Flag Act, which he always remembers every time I run into him. His staff worked on a couple of issues with me up in D.C., and Senator Rubio would definitely be a part of anything that we need. So
But as a
they're
district,
both-
I don't think we've really had relationships.
we haven't really had a
No,
need to.
not
We
really.
haven't lobbied
But
them.
Congressman Posey, he comes and he does like Medal of Honor winners at the
Okay.
end, and his staff that are here in town are involved in our schools. And
That's important, okay.
one of them is the mayor of Palm Bay.
Oh, okay, good to know. What about your legislative delegation?
I think we have a relationship now, a positive relationship with everyone. There's not a single one that we have a negative relationship right now with. So you have both the state senators,
question mark.
Which one is that?
Yeah.
One's a question mark, we'll see.
no, I've
We have
I've
one
had-
that's antagonistic, but it doesn't really matter because all the other ones are super, super supportive when that one's
To be
antagonistic.
I
determined.
have-
To be determined.
I have very.
You're working on it.
Yeah.
No. We have.
I think it's going to be fine, so I wasn't talking about that. Oh, that wasn't even a joke. That wasn't supposed to be a joke. That was so, look at me being all pushy.
So-
Look.
We've had conversations already in the fact that as a school district, we have to move forward with a positive light.
Yes.
And he has definitely responded in that he will definitely be a positive experience for us. So when I say that we have a good relationship, Senator Wright has been great. He sponsors a lot of our stuff for us.
Yes.
Senator Mayfield actually works ongoing with many of our issues. I mean, we've had Representative Placencia and I are really good friends, even though he's out now, and then incoming new, I mean, we have a great relationship with them. And I think we've established that now we're going to have a good relationship with one of them that may have been sideways with us in the past. So that is a definite positive.
What about county government?
You know, with the commissioners, we don't do anything with them. I think our staff has had a working relationship with their staff, but I don't know that we've, like one of the things that our board challenged ourselves and when we did our board evaluation a few years ago was to build those relationships with other elected officials. And I think the county is one where we just, I don't want to say missed the boat. We kind of got sidetracked with COVID because the idea was bring them into the schools, let them see.
Sure.
Our county commissioners has been one of those groups that we haven't really gotten to do that with. We have one, and I think it's because our kids were in schools, Commissioner Zonka, who, you know, she just was already involved in schools because her kids were in there or whatever, but, and has partnered with the district on a big JA project. But I think we could do better with that.
Okay.
So
I think it's important to understand the dynamic there. There has been a history of a dynamic where there's been this, our county commission butts heads with the school system, period, when it comes to who has control over what and financials. I think over the past 4 years, it's been a really healthy relationship between the staff and their staff. Just kind of facilitating that and communicating what needs to get done.
Are their districts the same drawn as yours?
They should be,
No,
but
they're
the thing
not.
is that
They're
they're
not.
different, but they're pretty close to being there. I will say that I have a personal relationship with all of our all of the county commissioners, and if we were to try to build any kind of a relationship or gap, have them come in and speak inside of ours, they would be more than happy to do so. Some of the financing that we have is the same as anywhere else that you have when you have arguments over stuff, but it's never boiled into this nasty attacks or anything.
Yeah,
No.
there's not animosity. It's just, I don't know that we haven't
It's-
really been.
It's when they'll release money that we should be reimbursed for things or whatever it is. and
Hurricane
that's all.
cleanup or
But like
stuff like that.
right, but we have an impact fee that every time we've made a recommendation, they've been able to support us in where those impact fees go.
They
There's
almost
just-
didn't allow the millage on the ballot, though their role was just to say we dotted our.
There was one county commissioner that decided that.
It got hung up. It got hung up.
It didn't. They passed it. It passed. There was one county commissioner that came out against it, and the others had said that they would publicly support it, and they did. So there's no conspiracy or anything like that.
It's not a conspiracy. It's important to be honest.
Well, it is honest. It passed with only one that was being negative, and the other 4 towards that topic, and the other 4 passed with it. That's it. They were all in support of it.
How many official municipalities do you have in your county? Some, maybe Palm Bay's not like a true city, it might just be an
Oh, no,
area.
it is.
Well-
No,
Yeah,
yeah,
there's like 10,
Yeah,
12.
there's like townships and crazy
Yeah.
sort of VABs.
I think there's
and-
13
I think there's like
Existing
official
cities.
that have their own city municipal governments, and
Yes.
then the rest is
You have
unincorporated.
VABs.
Yeah,
You have VA, like, you know what I mean? You have VABs, you have all these other things that
Right,
are out there,
right.
elected, some of them are huge, some of them are little. But those are all, again, all of those people work well with us inside of our cities. Like, when we had just had a conversation about going and visiting the mayors for the first time to just set up what we're doing, which is go to each one of the cities in a workshop. I talked to them on the phones just recently, and Tammy's getting ready to reach out to them to set the schedules for Dr. Schiller to go see them, is that they
did you
were-
know that, sir?
They-
No,
His
no,
head
I
popped
know,
up.
but it's,
I know it is.
We may have a change of direction.
Got it.
Regardless, what it is this, is that each one of those mayors were very positive about the direction of the board and where we're going, and they're in complete support, as is most of their city councils that they work with.
Do you all have a council of city leaders?
Yeah, Space
and-
Coast League of Cities.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
And
Do you all
they-
go to those meetings?
We do, and our superintendent is always going to those too, and we have a great relationship
That's
with
good.
them.
I think those are positive.
What about your chambers? And you probably have multiple, I'm
Yeah,
guessing.
We have 4. Yes, we have 4.
Specific
The
negotiations.
district has had a great relationship with the chambers that runs through your business department. Matt challenged each of us to be more involved.
Got my
so
first chamber meeting Friday.
I have a luncheon on Wednesday, so
I can see.
we are built different relationships, but we're trying to more purposely, as school board members, also be invested in our chambers.
And previously, the superintendent was super engaged in the chambers, particularly to go there and present what's happening in our schools as well. And they appreciated that. So that, again, would be something possibly important.
And they
for
invite us,
next
like
time.
when we have Brevard Day at the Capitol, they invite us to be a part of that
Okay.
delegation, and so we go and we can present our district agenda, but we've done that a couple of times over the past few years.
Some of
Well,
our-
not the COVID year, but-
Some of our chambers actually honor students every month. Some of our chambers have very integrated programs with schools, with volunteers. They
Nice.
support the
That's
JA,
what
the
it's-
Junior Achievement is a big
Sure.
organization here that they support. I think that when you look at the chambers, they're definitely supporters of ours.
And I'm glad you said that, because we actually have Junior Achievement Space Coast is one of the smaller Junior Achievement chapters, franchises in the country, smaller, and they have been recognized nationally as an
I mean,
exemplar.
smaller in size, but large. in output.
Right. So our community is and our chamber businesses and things are very involved in junior
Super,
achievement.
super involved in junior achievement.
Yeah.
The businesses love them and love them through us.
Okay.
They turn out.
One of the positives inside of our school district is we are the largest retired concentration of military
Right.
veterans in the state of Florida. So we have higher percentage of military veterans. Last time I heard, it was between 72 and 76,000 retired. So as you may know, there's many people, out of a 605,000 person county, you have almost a fifth of them, 20% are actually retired. That volunteer force becomes the wives of many of those individuals start their own not-for-profits. So we have one of the highest percentage of not-for-profits filed inside the state of Florida because of that. And the not-for-profits used to be a lot stronger right before COVID, but it kind of wiped out a lot of the out there. But there's a huge opportunity there, and that's why JA does so well, is because there's a large civic-minded background here in Brooklyn.
That's good to know. That's something we wouldn't have been aware of. That's exactly why we have these
And
conversations.
the head of the Veterans Association, Veterans Memorial Association that's here, is a good friend of mine. He said that he would love to be a part of the transitioning and speak for the Veterans Associations. He oversees all of the American Legions, Veterans of Foreign Wars. Every one of them are inside of his building that's over there. They have a beautiful building that's multi-millions of dollars donated from the state. So we have one of those. It's a very unique situation for us.
May I say something?
Sure.
We have Legacy Club that runs out of my office. It's about 8,000 members.
They're all retired, local in Brevard County that we...
Retired school district employees?
No, retirees.
Oh, okay.
Volunteers.
Legacy Club, that's
Called Legacy
interesting.
Club. And so it's, we have the ability to reach 8,000 people who we want to keep engaged with the school district.
8,000?
8,000, yeah. And so
We have
they could be-
crazy community support.
That's
Yeah, we
phenomenal.
have, yeah.
So there's two narratives going on in the world, right? That like the community's upset and the reality is our school system is hugged and loved by this community in every single area. And in those low-income areas, the stereotype of the lack of involvement, absolutely not. Those communities are the ones who keep those schools afloat. We've been leaning on those outside organizations and agencies way too hard, to be honest. And your next line with the faith-based, I mean, they support throughout the entire county.
You were going to ask about economic development.
Yeah, economic development, we'll jump to faith-based. I know you're on the Economic Development Council, is that correct?
Yeah, the
I heard you say
executive
that.
board. So what that does is we have L3 Harris. We have some of the largest aerospace contractors, either headquartered or large populations here. And we have, when they are looking to move a program from somewhere else for fidelity, they contact us. So like when Northrop Grumman wanted to bring in certain manufacturing that they put out at the airport out there, they looked to us because we had the best schools and stuff out of their options. They actually looked to a place in Louisiana for one of the other programs, and that program didn't have the school infrastructure, so when they announced it, none of their workers even went there. And so we are very attractive in that. So a lot of all the way from top, all the way down to just your 10-man plumbing companies are all supporting our schools through donations and stuff like that. That is without a doubt, because like I said, many military families moved here. So the retirees that are here had children that are going here, have sons that own companies here. So there's that base there. So you see a lot of that support.
I think it's
We have-
important in that area too, though, to know that EDC is uncomfortable as well.
I spoke to
I'm
the
very,
executive
very
director.
uncomfortable.
I spoke to the executive director 3 weeks ago, and she was perfectly understanding of the direction, and she supported exactly what we did.
I hear you, and I spoke to people too. It's more than one human being. It's important, again, for this process to be honest and open.
It is.
Areas to continue, areas to strengthen. It's just something to recognize that it is a fractured relationship. And so it's just something important for someone coming in to recognize.
So you mentioned the faith-based, so let's talk about your faith-based community and the support. And a lot of times it is those underserved communities that rely more heavily on the faith-based. Do you guys have a strong relationship
So
with
we
the
have
faith-based?
something called the PI program, Partners in Education, that it runs, coordinated out of Government Community Relations Office, Russell's office. Every school has Partners in Education, and I think I believe now, we didn't when I first got on the board, but now we actually have a faith-based partner for every school, at least
Okay.
one.
Really?
Right, and so the partnership is up to the partner, whether it's a business or an individual or a church, but they'll come in and like feed the staff, supply school supplies. Some of them work closely with an organization in our county called the Children's Hunger Project, where they pack weekend meals that go home every Friday. And we have a church in the north area, Georgiana, that does like multiple things. They come in as volunteers to read
Corky's
kids.
the
They
best.
do whatever
Corky's the best.
the school needs. So I would put those community partners and faith-based kind of together because we have that formal structure of the PI program, which is a huge networking thing also for them because it benefits the partners and it benefits the schools. But then we have other people who are community partners outside of that, I would say. Even though I think the Children's Hunger Project, they're kind of a community partner. It's a nonprofit. I'm on their board, but they work very closely with food and nutrition services and with all our school administrators.
They deliver.
To do the weekend meal packet.
They deliver meals to children that don't get fed over the weekend.
Okay.
And they
To
bring
how
them to
many
the schools
thousands?
on Fridays. Oh, we're up over 3,000 kids every week.
Every
across the
week
county.
get food over
Elementary,
the
so
break.
breakfast on elementary.
Yeah.
Always want to have more of those, but I don't know what are our numbers as our growth over the last few years.
It's growing, unfortunately, but also with those food items that you're sent home,
okay,
we're able
thank
to
you.
package in information because it's packaged
Sure.
in. So that's how we can reach parents about any topic that they want to. And a lot of times it's about nutritional value, but it's also hygiene,
School programs.
different programs. That we
Math
offer.
tutoring, whatever it might
Exactly.
be.
So that's double way to kind of get them on where they are versus having them to kind of seek out information.
You know, that was good, because I know earlier today you talked about how to get information to underserved parents, and that sounds like a great plan to do that. It's really
And
good.
interestingly, the Children's Hunger Project, there's some grants that we've been trying to get, as on my other board that I sit on, that they want to know what kind of information are you sending home, and like part of the thing of the grant is, what other, are you putting community information in the food packets? So we're having to expand that.
Yeah, we gave them stuff.
Right,
Yeah, they're
so that
doing
we
it
can
now,
actually
so
qualify
it's
for
really-
grants,
it's really nice.
so.
Anything
that's
else
been
about
great.
faith-based that anybody wants to mention?
Very engaged, very supportive in any way they can help.
And then let's move to other community partners. There are groups out there that may be large and very supportive that we want to hear who they are and what they do.
Junior achievement,
Yeah,
I just
JA.
spoke. If you're talking about
JA.
outside the pieces, we have, many of our manufacturers come together every year for something known as an Innovation Day. So they put together a big STEM competition that includes the Office of Naval Intelligence, L3 Harris, all the other military organizations, Grumman, Boeing, all of them.
We have
come
rolling
together for that.
readers.
What is it called?
Rolling readers. That's not Deborah Bard thing, isn't it kind of a?
I think it's like they have their own like Brewer chapter.
It's
She just
mainly
reached out.
retiree age that come and read.
Provide, yeah, reading tutoring and read with students.
It's not really complicated. I don't know their whole.
But you have a good system that they're deployed.
Right. They're an organized group of volunteers.
So through the Veterans Memorial Foundation, we created the largest veteran speaking project in the Southeast United States. And the only other place is like Chicago, but they're so much bigger than us, or somewhere else. But we put together, and we have veterans that go into the schools, and they can speak about their firsthand accomplishments and stuff like that inside the.
The other thing that we've really worked on, and it's an area to continue and to continue to strengthen, is last year we had a big emphasis on building internships directly related to our CTE programs. And so we have challenged many of our companies in the area to take on either an unpaid, but working towards a paid internship for our high school students, so that it would partner with their CTE certification, so that they're graduating with the certification and the internship. And we're already seeing the benefits of it. We actually, a CTE program has a full-time staff member that their sole purpose is the community partnerships internships. And I can't remember, we have a new guy who took Grace's place. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about?
Peter?
Yeah. So that's something to continue to grow.
Technically, Brevard Schools Foundation is not Brevard Public Schools.
I was wondering, because no one had mentioned it, I was going to ask if
Yes.
somebody didn't bring it up. So help me understand how that structure works here.
I'll probably mess it up, but we donate a space on our district property for them.
So they are a
technically
direct support organization, or they're
Yes.
not?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's one of our most major partnerships.
Yeah, we contribute $50,000
$50 a year,
a year to their operations,
Yeah.
and any donations that go through there, they get 10%.
And
I would also say
Teacher of the Year.
there's a lot of, again, typically it's in our lower income areas, but aftercare, after school, club nonprofits that exist that are really supportive.
Boys and
to
girls
certain
clubs,
communities.
things like that, YMCA?
But more like localized.
Okay.
So one of them called Club Esteem, one of them's called Neighbor at Brevard. There's some major ones. I don't know the ones in the north area, sorry. But those are really, really, really critical to supporting the schools in their area and the families in their area, but also being a liaison for those families to the school district.
Do you run your own after-school programs at
Yeah.
your schools too?
We
in
do. It's
addition
an
to those?
enterprise.
Okay, it's an enterprise. yeah.
Enterprise
Yeah.
organization. And we also have 21st Century as part, I mean, it's run together, but some of our schools have the 21st Century one.
And then, I mean, this seems kind of obvious, but I'm going to state it anyway. The partnerships with their local colleges and universities, so Eastern Florida State and IT, have some pretty, they support us overall, period, throughout the district, but they have really unique partnerships in some of our schools that are really important.
And one of our high schools has the opportunity to do dual enrollment with Florida Tech.
Yeah.
All of them have the opportunity to do with EFSC, But when a Palm Bay High School can, because they're across the street from each other, they have offered the opportunity for students to do dual enrollment with Florida Tech, and if they make it through, they actually have guaranteed admission into Florida Tech, which is very neat.
Florida Tech also is working this with Dr. Schiller to create a way for new teachers from across the state to come in and do some really engaging new teaching academy. And we're going to also use that as an opportunity to pluck them from other districts when they come in here. Don't let anybody else know about that. But it's a very strong bond with our local schools, secondary schools.
Are you doing, getting a good amount of interns from the schools too?
You mean from?
Student interns.
Student interns.
So our student interns gets, on the education purpose,
Yeah.
is that what you're speaking to, like being teachers?
Yeah.
They get stolen from UCF because our schools can only teach one course for their second 2 years. So Eastern Florida State does not have an educational piece.
But UCF has a branch here, don't
But
they?
they do, but what happens is UCF takes them, so they get all the way through to the fourth year, and then UCF asks them to intern in Orlando,
Is that-
and they promote Orlando.
There's only one
So-
teaching program at Eastern Florida State. It's specific to elementary science education.
So true statement, they apply.
Which
Here's
makes
the-
sense for Cape Canaveral. I mean,
But,
Right,
but
yeah.
here's,
But
here's
it's only
the problem.
like 20 people.
They've applied in the past, and UCF vetoes the application because they're not.
It takes
they
away from
say,
them, yeah.
They
That's
say that
where
it's
the-
taking
that-
away from them, but they're
that's where the
stealing our stuff.
Superintendent has to deal with that though. That's
He's been trying to develop that partnership and increase it for.
They
for
fought
years.
so hard just to get the science program. It's been ugly at the state level for sure between.
Yeah, it's
Eastern
turf
Florida
wars.
State and
It's
UCF.
turf wars is what that is. Yeah.
And the problem is Eastern Florida State used to be VCC, a community college, and there used to be a healthier, more youthful and transient relationship with UCF, where UCF had a lot of classes on the Cocoa campus. And then once it transitioned to a state school, that's when it became more of a combative
Okay.
relationship.
So I remember one semester, probably 3 years ago, where I believe out of all of our secondary schools, we had one intern.
Wow. With your student population, I'm
That's-
shocked to
and
hear
now
that.
I mean, other semesters have been better, but I remember that data point one. Now, one of the things that we have done is created a teacher academy, CTE teacher academies, at one in the north end, one in the south end, to hopefully grow our own and get the students to want to stay, they'll obviously have to go away to college, but then to come back here. So we have that at Bayside and one year's.
Funniest story is
After
that
that.
I started the one in Space Coast when I was a teacher in 2008. And I taught a girl who then became a teacher that also teaches my daughter. And now her son is actually on my son's football team. So there's a
Small world.
connection there. But the thing is that we have a very good system and infrastructure. But the problem, like she was saying, is that getting those people that are in those career and technical teaching classes to become teachers is not the number that we would like. Does that make sense?
Well, it's not anywhere, but
Right.
the numbers you have here are shockingly low for the size district you have, but the
I was
higher
gonna-
ed explains it.
Something I was going to bring up before the chaos of the last 3 months is, because it was something that was brought to my attention through my husband. My husband's an educator. We don't pay our teachers to be interns or supplement them in any way.
Right.
They're required to take these trainings. They're basically required to have this person sit beside them all day long and teach them and train them and hopefully influence them to stay within the district. But we're not incentivizing them. And so we have a staff that is frustrated, overworked, borderline want to quit themselves, and now we're asking them to take on the burden of training and recruiting people. There's not as many teachers in Brevard that are willing to do that. That number has declined as well. But it hasn't impacted us because we haven't had that many.
Right, I understand that. So what are some areas to continue, areas to strengthen related to your administrative staff in the district? And I'm talking about everything from assistant principals to just under the
We've
superintendent.
had a lot of
Turnover?
and I can't know for certain, but I mean, plenty of them certainly have had the opportunity to go do other things, especially in our county, with all of our
It's-
tech jobs.
It's very difficult to be competitive in our job market.
I can imagine, yeah.
3 years
Versus
ago,
stress.
when we were talking about a recession, the Florida Chamber marked Brevard as the only county that would not see a recession if it hit the way that it was supposed to. So we have Grumman offering $20,000 more to our administrators. So the only way we're able to hang on to them is if they have kids in the system, or if it's just that heartfelt make a difference in your life. And I think that's what it is. But you're right. There's a very undefined ladder of success within Brevard for somebody to move up. So if you're an assistant principal to a principal to the district staff, there's varying thoughts on how that is. So that could be helped as far as setting that up. You know what I mean? Having a succession plan in place for people and understanding how that works is also something that is needed for the income as far as, sorry to go ahead.
But it's fair to say that industry recruits some of them away.
Yeah, and I'll be honest,
in every
many of
area
them.
of our district.
So, but to be honest with you, it's not as much of a situation. We might have some assistant principals that might move around. Also, many of them have children. My wife was one of them. She was an assistant principal. She stopped because she had children. So that happens a lot too. But our principals are pretty locked into being principals on up, usually stay. It's where you end up below that where you see some of that movement. Because they're looking for a future.
Sorry. We're, with the millage, we'll hopefully see a positive trend. One of the most struggling areas is our APs, because their pay is quite honestly embarrassing. Most of the teachers that have had so much experience went into getting a master's degree at leadership, go on to become an AP and make less money than they made as an educator.
We had
That's
some
really
go back into the classroom because they could make money in the classroom.
it's tough on most of them, and so they don't stick around, and that's really where the turnover continuously happens. The millage will help, again, put a Band-Aid on it. It also will help for some of those that are leaving to go to other industries, but it's really tough because we are competing with an insane competitive business market around us. I mean, we've got educators, I know 3 personally, who literally just have a bachelor's degree. They've worked for about 12 to 15 years, and they're getting offered $70,000 jobs with every other Friday off, really great benefits, stock options. It's hard to
And teachers are great employees. People know that. So I could absolutely see if you have an industry that needs, I can see that.
But our APs is the scariest struggling area.
Do you have an administrative association?
We do BASA for BARD.
Okay, so you have an administrative association. What about the relationship with that organization?
What is
Pretty
that?
active.
So we have an administrative organization.
FASA. Brevard they're not tied to FASA. They've
Right.
kind of done their own thing here, but they have a very tight-knit group, not everybody a part of it.
Right.
But they do have an organization that's pretty good.
And you all work well with them?
Yeah, they work well. At a point when Dr. Blackburn was here, they met every month with Dr. Blackburn. And they have a very good relationship. The president had a very good relationship with Dr. Mullins, that he could pick up the phone and call him at any time.
Okay.
You guys were talking about the administrative staff at the schools. The administrative staff at the district right now, we have 2 major vacancies. Student Services, which oversees our ESE and a bunch of other opportunities. We just gave direction today to have Dr. Schiller fill them on an interim basis so that the individual who chooses to be superintendent will be able to fill that position. Also, HR. We have a vacancy in human resources, and he is going to fill that position and have them. That is another thing that we're going to do in an interim way, so that any superintendent that comes in will be able to bring people of their recommendation to those positions if they so choose. The other thing is that we did not have a succession plan, so there was no succession plan from principals to directors to assistant superintendents and stuff like that. So Dr. Schiller is going to try to set something up in alignment and get that ready. We've given Dr. Schiller the direction to set it up to where when a superintendent comes in, they have a clean slate so that they can make the decisions that they need to drive the decision-making that they have to have.
May I just ask Bill, with regard to, maybe you might want to speak to the kind of competition there are for certain positions, assistant superintendent, special ed.
Only if you want
HR.
good people.
I'm sorry?
Only if you want good people.
That's correct, and John will help me with this one, but I know in the area of exceptional student education, anyone over that area, it's very, very difficult to find anybody with the qualifications to do that job. I'm not sure how long your person has been in that. But I will say that that area and also HR.
And finance.
And finance are they're literally very difficult to
And
find.
HR has really become a challenge, and I'm aware of some districts that I've never worked with. You know, they've advertised multiple times
DeKalb County.
and basically just got the best they could. That was not a success. They knew that, so they re-advertised. So it is a search to find a good HR person.
What is the drawback that is holding back people to coming into HR? Is it just?
And get more money in industry, A.
Yes, salary is an issue, competitive salary is an issue, and I think it's just the diversity that an HR person has to deal with. You have equity issue, you have professional standards misconduct, which is a very, touch and go legal issue that you cannot mess up.
It's labor relations.
It's labor relations, it is teacher certification. If you find a good teacher certification person and you have one, keep that person and do all you can to keep them, because it is so complicated. If you want to get an ESC endorsement, what do you have to do with your current transcripts? They have to, if a principal wants to hire applicant A to be their advanced placement teacher, does that person have the certification, yes or no? Can they get the certification within a reasonable time? So the pressure on teacher certification is intense, but it is just, it's a massive job with so many tentacles. And if you want to, if payroll is thrown under HR,
That even complicates it more.
benefits is under HR, you really need the top of the line person.
Our benefits used to be under our CFO, and then they moved it under HR because
There
they
you
felt like
go.
she would do a better one.
Yeah.
But I think Schiller may look at that as something he's.
See, that's
But it's just the diversity of the
It's based on the person, though.
Well, you're right, and you got to have the right personality.
Talk to us about the status of your teaching staff. Are you fully staffed right now?
No.
No. Why would you ask that question, Amber? You're in the state of Florida.
Well, I could be surprised, that's why I ask. How bad is it? What are your opportunities? What are your greatest challenges?
Honestly, it's not that bad compared to the rest of the
That's
state.
right.
Right, yes, that's absolutely
that.
true. One of the unique opportunities that I haven't heard about how it's going so far, but because they just launched, but we did a contract with the company that, TPG,
Oh, okay,
to bring
the
in-
international teachers.
Right, so we just brought in 20 teachers from Canada.
Oh, from Canada.
That's Jamaica.
Yes.
Jamaica.
Terrific.
Jamaica.
That's
Canada was the last one.
Definitely not the same.
The other.
Not even close.
Don't worry about
I'm
it.
sure the Canadian teachers do want to come to Florida.
Peachtrees, we can get them out.
To fill some strategic gaps, and honestly, that's a partnership because we're all having to get creative. That we might have if it goes well, we might have the potential to grow.
Good.
That's
So
just
There are
one.
initiatives that are happening here
Yeah.
that may provide the kind of pipeline. And fortunately, the dedication of people, and because of where this place is located, okay, these there will always be critical areas, like speech therapists, what I'm talking about. But this is in a much better shape, and there are people, why wouldn't you want to come here?
I know.
Except maybe the competition of what you can get with a bachelor's degree and if you outside industry, but the dedication and devotion that I have seen is astounding. And that's one, we're looking at the staffing and recruitment, and I want to see to what extent we're adequately staffed in HR to meet that, and also to what extent exit interviews and clauses for, as you know, yes, there's a shortage, but what are some of the driving reasons that people are leaving? They're leaving at critical points after 3 years, 7 years. They're not adequately supported, or the environment. It is not just money driving them away out of the profession. As you know, I'm telling you, I'm preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
But here, I'm not sure we have that data of why people are just up and going at those, but we are fortunate here, thank goodness. We're not into critical demands where everybody, including bus drivers, are just, that people are being pulled out of jobs just to simply babysit.
And we only have, our numbers are only between 120 and 160 vacancies
In total.
in total.
How many teachers do you have?
We have almost, I think we have,
4,200.
no, we have close to 4,000.
40,
Yeah. It just depends on which classes.
So you do have a small percentage.
We have over 4,000.
Small
We have
percentage,
close
but it's
to
still
or over
120.
4,000.
Right. It's a lot of teachers.
What about
It's a lot for
the
those kids.
Yeah.
relationships with the Teachers Association?
The
What's that?
union?
Yeah.
Union?
It depends on the day.
Right.
We have a great relationship with the teachers union and the bus drivers 1010 union. We have both of those.
Wait, but the bus drivers aren't in their own union, they're with the
They-
rest of the support
The
staff, right?
IA, support staff,
So you have
custodians, everybody.
two unions,
Yes.
basically, the teachers and everyone else?
Yeah,
Of course, and then non-bargaining is going to be your
Yeah.
BASA and stuff like that. But they still are at the table. They still come to the table, they still, BASA still develops what their needs are at the district.
Our other union is very, there's not a high participation. I mean, I don't know.
You're talking about the support staff
The
union?
support staff.
Does
Yeah,
not
no,
have high participation?
No,
It's
I
like
would say
200
it's
members.
11%.
Oh, that's very small for me.
It's very small percentage that are actually members.
I think the teachers have to have 50%.
Right, in
I guess
order
they
to
don't-
keep
the
their-
others don't.
Right, or don't just.
And they're over, they've been over.
Yeah, they're like
Yeah, they're good.
60 something.
Okay, so that's not even at risk.
Well, they have been in the past, but
What's that?
The union, the percentage to keep their.
Sure, or lead, because I'm
The numbers of the union.
Yeah, numbers in our teachers union are very high. And it's not in any way a negative because of their fight with us. It's actually because they've actually done a lot of staff development and stuff like that. New teachers academies, they're in there trying to work with them and stuff like that. So it's a positive relationship.
And I would confirm that, Tammy, I don't remember, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, I met with the Union Lead Association members on Friday. They want to air the issues, the contract things that maybe the language that perhaps I can address right quick with them that I bring to the board, get that off the table. They need to hear, they want to hear it, okay? I'm a certified labor relations consultant out of Rutgers University all the way through arbitration. I negotiate at the table on behalf of boards. I've done that. I'm not going to take someone's job on. If the board wants to get a successor agreement that you want before the new superintendent comes in, for peace, harmony, not okay, I'm willing to work with the folks here if you want me to be a resource to try to bring this closure, so that's not one thing. And the hard part will be, if it's monetary issues, I said to them, that no one can commit to because you don't get from the state the funding level. But you can have a framework in place, and if you can get all the language issues resolved through an opener and language, maybe then, this board, after I'm long gone and with the new person come in, but anything that we can do, I have a good feeling that these folks can be worked with, and they just want the best for their people they represent. I really mean that.
That's their job. I mean, that's what
And
they should be
and
wanting.
that's their job in BPS. And whatever skill set in my past experience I've done, my first experience was when I was 23 years old as a teacher negotiating on behalf of the Teachers Association against the board. Then, when I went quickly into the superintendencies and things like that, particularly the first 3 or 4, and in Baltimore when I parachuted in, I was at the table on behalf of the board doing the negotiations all the way through the step increases, designing.
So you've got a great, strong background,
I can help.
sure.
So this board set the predicate for trying to improve relations.
we do have contracted, we have negotiations already contracted for the millage. We have that negotiated before it passed, so if it passed
We can do
with
this.
the amounts for both BFT, our teachers union, and our support union, that's already been established. So that was a positive that we did before.
So talk about support staff for a little bit. Nobody can get the bus drivers they need, but how are you with teachers' aides and cafeteria and all
Our
those
biggest
custodial?
struggles, bus drivers and IAs are our biggest holes for support staff.
We have an innovative, Dr. Mullins put together an innovative program where IAs can become teachers.
Yeah.
And that has become a lot of IAs have utilized that from our district.
You guys pay for the education on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, the $15 an hour, wage hike that happened, I just don't think that we had enough time maybe to see that
move through and see if it makes a difference.
Right, the impact of it.
Let's talk about the support and the relationship with parents and guardians.
So we had right now, we're going through the process of creating a better tight-knit with our community. For the years past, because of COVID, there's been a lot of policies to make sure that parents don't maybe particularly eat lunch with their kids and are not volunteering inside the program. So
Where
now,
before COVID, they did do
it was
this.
wide open.
Absolutely.
And so now there's
Because of
a,
Marjorie's done with those.
Right.
there's a,
That was,
now
it's
there's,
just gradually.
It continued, but it was because of Marjorie's done with those.
well, the key is that regardless of what it was, over the last 4 years, we have successfully gone to a place where I think this board has made it part of the direction to go back to 4 years ago, which is high involvement in the schools with the parents, having the parents come for lunch, having the parents do a lot of the different assistance and support.
Yeah.
We want our parents to be a part of our schools, to include pastors walking the school hallways to help out with some of the discipline. We want
Mentors, honestly,
Right.
that's to me is the biggest pool of potential candidates for jobs, for subs, for IAs, for cafeteria staff, even for teachers, I think that we can, that's something we need to improve.
Gene,
Yeah.
did you want to say something about it?
Well, just about streamline our volunteer process would be one thing. I continue to hear that in the campaign was it needs to be easier to get into the schools to volunteer, for example. I mean, we well have the fingerprint, but something I heard while I was out there was, we're in the Space Coast, and many of the, say, husbands or wives or parents, they have top secret clearance or clearance at their employment, but yet they have to go through such hoops to go do anything at their kid's school, and there should be some way to connect their qualifications at their work into the school. It should be easy for that transition, and I've been asked multiple times to see if we can make that a
Yep.
seamless transition.
And we actually talked today about putting that as a workshop to work towards the volunteer issue in our district.
Oh, we heard parts of that. We couldn't hear it because you guys were talking this
Sorry.
way. We heard pieces, but
Sorry.
that's what that was about. Okay. Anything else with parents and guardians we need to be aware of?
Nope. We have a high number of grandparents raising grandchildren.
Okay.
And that is a area of underserved that could be used to be serviced. These are people that are just basically, when you knock on the doors, I'm sure you guys found them, they're in the medium to low income areas, living in like 1,200 square foot homes to 800 square foot homes. And they've taken the responsibility to raise these children because of their sons or something happening to their kids. That's a big, along with the homeless.
Do you have large, at each school, parent organizations, maybe PTO or PTA or
It
any of that?
depends, like our Title I's
Yeah,
are
it's
turning,
inconsistent.
our Title I's are falling on the backs of our teachers. Many of our Title I schools, the teacher's the PTO president. And that is, but in other schools, I mean, like you can go to my Vieira schools, and they're
Yeah.
like bolstered with parents. You got to keep them there like Katie Bar door, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's pretty consistent with the rest of the state, but it is an issue.
So you don't have an organized PTA
Not
in every
across the
school?
district, no. No, and even, my kids went to one of our choice schools, which is, has been blue ribbon and whatever, and we only had I was there for 12 years, we only had a PTA 1 year, and then all the officers quit, and the next year they've always had a great volunteer force, because you have to do it, but there was so we do not have district-wide consistent PTO. I mean, some schools don't have a PTO, but they have a good volunteer organization, they just don't have the structure of a PTO.
What about parent advisory committees at each school?
We have SACs at every school, which we are required to have, but, and then some schools have, they just call them different things.
The SAC representatives ever meet with the school board or the superintendent from each school?
No.
No, but we have what we call the parent leadership team, where we have 1 or 2 parents that are chosen from each school, and they come together several times during the year to get updates, and then their responsibility is to go back to their schools and through whatever organization they have to communicate.
But they don't feed into the board conversation. You all are telling that it's
And
out, not in. Is that
so
correct?
so twice a year I meet with my PTOs. I did not this past semester. but I pull all my PTOs from around my thing and talk to them and just have them collaborate. But that's the only thing that I've ever done or received an invite to.
But that's not like a county-wide thing, that's, okay.
That would be a great thing.
What about students? Do you have a student member of your board? Or does
No,
this?
and I've asked about this in the past, and I feel like there was some
It's in many counties.
legislative reason that I didn't understand, nor do I remember or
The
understand
superintendent he had regular meetings with the Student Government Association.
Okay. Yeah.
The
his-
presidents,
yeah.
he had an
His
SGA
monthly-
council that he met with once a year. And we traditionally have taken them up to Tallahassee. They would pick a topic, whether it was vaping or whatever, and we'd take them on a bus to Tallahassee and let them talk to their legislators. But he met with them on a monthly basis, I think,
Monthly
during the
basis.
school year.
Okay.
All the students come together, they do it virtually or however.
Right, and he would do that for input. And, you know, we didn't talk about it before, but this was something specific to our superintendent. He had developed over the last 2 years, community ambassadors, so that whatever the decisions that had to be made, he would meet, and Tammy's got a list, I mean, there's a huge list, like 300 people on it, of pastors, community leaders, our Teacher of the Year finalists, and Employee of the Year finalists, I'm trying to think, business leaders, and he would either host them all at once, or he would do.
What was that group called?
Community ambassadors. And they were involved in, here's the strategic plan, what do you think our areas of focus should be, and was used as that was definitely a both way. Like he
Got
could
it,
communicate out, here's what we're doing, but I need your input on it.
reciprocal.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Because it's like, because of the makeup of this county and how
Yeah.
enormous it is and how diverse it can be, that was the cleanest way to make the community feel involved, but also keep him involved in the community in any way possible. It was super active, and those members still are banging on the door wanting.
That would be a really good.
That's good.
I'm
Scared it's
glad
gonna go away.
You thought about that because that was, as I was looking through your materials, you were talking about community focus groups or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
We have a set already that's very broad based across the county, and many of whom are parents too, and employees, to start with when we talk about focus groups or,
Sure.
you know, is our.
Great place to
Is
start.
that one committee? Is that one group, one committee?
I don't think he ever met with them all together. He'd meet
Maybe
with
like
them in
once
their
a year,
groups,
but-
like the faith-based group, or
was a
or he
lot.
would meet with them north, central, south.
So basically, you have kind of 3 areas. you
Yeah,
could pull
or
from.
virtually.
Some of the conversations that would come out of those from the people that were attending was that it was more of a, this is what we're doing as a district, but not the reverse of how can we as a district help you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's why I was asking about the reciprocal
That's- right,
nature.
so well, that's what the flip was. And then the other part that you had mentioned is that years ago, during the boards that I was a part of and as a teacher, we used to have we would have a different chorus come in from a different school and sing before the meeting. We would have a band come in and present, or we would have the newest athletic team that just won the state championship come in. And I've seen other school districts, just so you know, Ms. Jenkins, if you would like, I would be in favor of bringing a student representative to our board. Sarasota has it. I mean, I've been to a couple of them. I've seen
Alachua, I could go
yeah.
on, there's a lot of
So there's no
districts.
restriction there, so if that's something, I think we, as a school district, what I wanted to say, we each have a child inside of our school district. That's very rare that the whole board is committed to our school district that way. And so we would promote that engagement back into the schools.
Well, you just segued into students,
Yep.
and that's really what I want to focus on is students. What are some opportunities there other than what we've already discussed? And I am going to try to get you out by 4. So
we're gonna be here a little bit
I'm
after
being
you guys.
mindful of the time, but let's talk, give me your thoughts immediately about some of the student opportunities that exist. I just heard one about student
SGA.
potential.
What do you mean?
Representative, like what are the strengths that you have in your students? What are some of the opportunities that you
We
believe?
have the best music programs in the state of Florida, documented by the fact that we have more all-state students and more music model schools. We actually have more music model schools than the whole rest of the state put together. So that's one of my favorite areas. But we have, yes.
So our football programs have
Science.
more state champions.
So you have
than
strong
any-
athletic programs, strong
Science,
music
very
programs,
strong.
strong, I heard about the innovation game, so I know we have some science
Our IB program,
IB programs.
Program?
our ROTC in
Oh, I would guess with your military community.
Right.
If you didn't have a strong ROTC,
And our
you'd hear
Raiders
about it.
program that's associated with ROTC's. tops
Your
in the
arts
state.
program?
The Raiders program, yeah.
ROTC.
Yeah,
I mean,
ROTC.
but, I'm sorry, what about your arts?
They're
Very great orchestras, band, chorus.
Music.
best in the
Yeah.
state.
And visual arts as well.
Like I get a call every once in a while, a kid like, hey, I'm going off to this, I just want to let you know that I'm getting a field trip, and they're like the best flutist in the world. Like you're like, what? Where'd you come from? So, yeah.
I'm going to Allstate this week with my daughter, who's going to best bassoonist in the state, just so you know.
We kind of touched on this already, but because we're coming at it from the perspective of students, the opportunities of our CTE programs and the uniqueness of the ones that we have, never mind the amount of that we have, and then the new one that's coming to Cocoa Beach, hopefully within the next year or two.
Yeah, okay.
The only issue with our career and technical programs is that they are defined by school rather than by a technical college. So where you find many school districts have regional technical colleges that the kids are bused to, in our cases what we have is we have the programs at the schools. So one school will have manufacturing and teaching. And
It's hard to replicate them in all the different schools.
Right. So
Sure.
what we used to do is we had a transitional bus program that used to take the students from one to another. So a kid up north could go down south. It was not as promoted the way it could. So what was happening was the utilization of like 80% of it was from students going to choice schools, that they hire affluent students going to choice schools who had parents that could drive them anyway, right? So that we used
Do
that
you
as
not
a-
have a career tech school at all in the county?
We don't. No career in
No,
technology.
we have 14 of them.
That's it.
14 high school.
So what we have, Ms. Messina.
Every
is
school has a.
Each local, so whereas.
Yeah, that is a little different structure. That's why.
So whereas say our firefighting place down in Palm Bay only has the students that are at Palm Bay for the most part that will go there. Now, you're allowed to transfer drive.
If you provide your own
But one of the
transportation.
problems is that is very low numbers throughout our, because you have to almost start the school to go to those programs, to know about them, to be effectively through it. So you have a regionally based system of career and technical programs that are fed from the local schools, but not outside of that. So that's what I was
Okay.
speaking to earlier, where if we could have one central and north, then all of a sudden, so it needed to be kind of, if we're going to put them in places, make sure that they're a direct feed there.
Minus the transportation issue, we also are a completely choice district, so you can pretty much go to any, unless it's frozen, or one of the choice schools that has a specific application process.
As long as you provide your own transportation.
Yeah, you can
Because
go in-
how many miles from one end to the other?
72.
72, see, that's a challenge for you.
So we used to have the busing, it was just one of the first budget cuts that were made.
It's a financial-
before I was on
yeah.
the
It's a
board.
financial issue,
But
yeah.
to be
And a
fair,
people issue.
it is something that the board can think about and revisit as we now have half-cent sales tax again and a millage. It's something to possibly consider and discuss if it's even a possibility in the future.
But if we don't have the budget
finances-
numbers, we can't do it.
I understand, but then you come to staffing issues, right?
We as a-
But it was cut because of financing.
We as a school district either need to provide busing to get students to the programs that are at the schools, or create career and technical colleges to get the students there. That's the only two ways, or give it to Eastern Florida State and have the kids go there. Because what we're doing right now is not, it's not done fidelity. And that's what our Economic Development Council.
I know you spent most of your morning talking about the board superintendent protocols and relationships and how does the board communicate. That's why I didn't say them a bunch of time related to this section here, this next section. But what would you say, like if you were going to be envisioning your ideal relationship with your incoming superintendent, with the board superintendent, from each one of you, if you could just give me a sentence or two, what does that ideal relationship look like for you? What do you need as a board member from this incoming superintendent?
Trust and transparency. And confidence.
I would love to see a strong leader. I want someone who's got a strong stance on things that really takes control of our district. We have a lot of things I think internally that could use some attention. Hopefully we'll have them sorted out prior to our permanent superintendent coming, but in the event that we don't, someone that can recognize
We
it.
need to maintain it too.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
I'll speak. I would love to have a superintendent that can bring us from good to great and set forward what is the labor market and availability of that for the future of our country. And that is the truth, because that's who we are. That's what we're tasked to do as a society. That's what my point is. That's what I would love. That's student achievement, that's jobs, that's it.
Honestly, from being in the classroom is everything you said was exactly what I would say. With more of, to be able to meet us at the lowest denominator, the lowest level of classrooms. I came right out of teaching a few years ago, so being able to see our district through the teacher's eyes, through the parents' eyes. Yes, the great space center that we can all be in the greatest of greatness, but I mean, we're many times in this district, I think we're falling apart at the foundation. That's why some of the teachers are leaving in droves. I don't know if we just keep our eyes up here while things are going to heck down there.
He's right.
So we need one to understand and recognize that, because we can never be as great as we possibly can. You can't build a Taj Mahal on a weak foundation, and I think we need to continue strengthening that foundation, because if we ignore it, we're doomed.
Katie?
Just someone who's willing to listen to all the parts, all the sides.
That's right.
And,
This is good, man. This is real good.
and really take in all of that input and what's the technical word for smoosh it together? But
Amalgamation?
yeah, maybe that's a little more complicated.
I like squishy.
Smoosh it. But who's accessible and with their time and with their information.
Okay. John, I'm going to let you ask them some questions that will help give you some direction on developing a draft timeline, because I know you need some key information points in order to do that. So I'm going to turn it over to you right now for that.
Okay. I'll start with probably the biggest one is, what is your anticipated start date of the new superintendent?
So if I could speak, and I'll be honest now that we're in public, one of the issues that we were running up on was that we knew the other school districts were going to be going out, okay? Originally, Jacob Oliva, I had spoken to him multiple times on the phone, had mentioned that he was coming, and all locks and sterile, he was coming to apply for the board. And what was the issue that happened is most recently he just got selected to go to Arkansas. Since then also, Dr. Schiller has mentioned that many of the other school districts throughout the nation don't finish until June 30th, right? Mm-hmm. So the idea would be that I think we need to be flexible on when the start date is, because now that we have somebody that I feel comfortable with being here during that time. I know he said he's out of here at a certain time, and I forgot what that was.
That's the contract, right, 31?
Well, we're
But you
gonna
said
leave
you're
it.
willing to extend if it's mutually
Whatever,
agreeable.
but that's totally up to you and me and where you are. I will not leave you in a lurch. Don't say that to my wife.
So,
Okay, but the point being is that I'm going to turn it over to you with realistic, and maybe as we chatted, Bill, what you would be able to do in order to do a June 1.
So I think the idea would be that in order to attract people from across the country, that we would want to make it as advantageous to them as possible. So for me, and I'm just speaking right now, and please don't let me speak for you guys, but I think we should leave the start date open to allow Schiller to fill until they're appropriate. So if there's somebody that looks at it and says, well, I can't start May 31st, I can't even apply. But if they could start July 1st, then they could. And if Schiller's going to be able to work there, does that make sense to you? So their start date can go as late as, right? And then whatever the appropriate time to select a superintendent would be in between is what I was looking at.
I would like to make a decision by June 1st.
Oh, no, I'm saying we make a decision before, but you leave that start date availability for
Start
them.
date is not
Okay,
a problem.
that'll
That's
help.
not an
Yeah,
issue.
That helps, as long as we know what your
That's
goal
Right, for your-
decision
right, we have to
is.
have a date.
But
That's right.
the other piece is that, I'll be honest with you guys, I feel that out of the districts that are out there, that we are the most, people will look at us the best, just from our demographics and stuff like that. It might not be because of the, you know what I mean, the other stuff, but I'll tell you that I truly believe when you ask superintendents, when they compare us to Collier, Manatee, and the others, that we stand pretty good as far as.
You're an appealing
district.
district.
We're an appealing district. So I don't think that trying to rush ahead of the other guys is so as important as much as being here, you know what I mean?
Okay.
If that makes sense. Now, if we're all within 5 days, I want to be ahead of them. But, you know what I mean? So that's my thoughts, and then I'll leave it right there.
Well, I would say that if we could have a date by which the board would make a selection for their next superintendent with a start date and transition period to be negotiable, that would really allow for other, because in the advertisement, you really want to be upfront with these applicants to say they're looking to make a decision by June 1st, or the first week of June, and start date is subject to negotiations. That needs to be in the advertisement,
Okay.
because then and there you determine,
I
some
like
people
that.
are going to say.
What about a
You
start
had given
date?
us a timeline in the initial thing. Are we still in that timeline of June 1st being a?
Well, part of it depends on how long you advertise, part of it depends on to what degree you want citizen involvement. That's what we're asking you now, so that we can come back with an actual sketch out. And when we say June 1st, even as a hopeful hire date, we want to remind you, you have graduations, probably the end of May. And so, you know, there are pieces that we're going to have to work around, given your schedule.
When we had spoken before, you guys had made a mention that roughly like 120 days was a window, it's like 4 months of a proper process to engage with the community and stuff like that.
Yeah, you could do that.
So you could make a decision on like before our graduations, but not have to start before. I mean, like, I don't know. I don't want to wait until June to make a decision.
I don't either, honestly.
If you
For
guys
high
say
school.
120 days or 4 months is good, and we were to start sometime this month, then April, early May would be the hit.
Do you have the graduation? When is it? Well, I couldn't find
It's the week
May
graduation.
before.
22nd, 18th, 17th, somewhere in there.
Tammy, can you just send us that schedule?
May 17th, May
Thank you.
17th.
It's like,
No,
it's like 2 weeks worth.
22nd, 23rd.
Yeah, there's 20 of them almost.
Yeah, they're all,
We have them
So John,
all week.
Okay. Then, if I could ask a few questions for clarification. As far as community forums to kind of get community input, you've mentioned this kind of group that maybe the liaisons with the ambassadors. Is it potentially possible to have one of those groups from the north, central, and south meet? Would that suffice for this board for community input?
or would you want more?
I think we need to probably open it up to do more. That's just a good group to pull people from.
Yeah, it's not going to meet the needs of the community who feels like there needs to be significant parent involvement. There are parents in that group, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to meet the needs of the community who feel like parents have been engaged enough. And they're going to have to be engaged differently than that group. So it's going to have to be different.
can you guys give us a tentative, this is normally how it is, 60 days where you throw the name?
Yeah, John can absolutely give you
Okay,
what's on.
let's do that.
Okay, so we kind of start off with, we would look to maybe do an online survey that really would kind of be partially connected to a face-to-face forum setting. So we develop an online survey, put on your website. You run that, say, for 2 to 3 weeks. During those 2 weeks, let's say, that you run the online survey, Dr. Vogel and I would basically attend maybe high schools in
3, 4,
or 4
whatever
high
the main
schools
ones.
in your area that would draw from the key areas you want input from. You'll also get the online input. With that, then we determine what the online survey is, what the forum input is.
The results.
The results, and if you wanted to say have a teacher focus group, administrative focus group, we could maybe meet with that group. Their input on, and we kind of asked for 3 things. what are the strengths of the district that the new superintendent does not need to mess with, only improve upon. Then we ask for input on what are the challenges that the new superintendent is going to face. Is it the building program? Is it, so we get the challenges. And then we ask about some of the qualities and characteristics that your community wants to see in the next superintendent. That information, as part of the online survey, it's part of the forums, the focus groups if we do one, we compile that, give it to the board. Then we have a session with the board where the board says, based on this, these are the 8 qualities and characteristics we want to see in the next superintendent. With that input from the community, input from the board, we set those 8. You also will set the minimum qualifications for the next superintendent. As an example, master's degree required, doctorate preferred. I will say if you put doctorate required, does that reduce your pool? It could. You'll put in there the effective, date for appointment. You know, you put in the experience. Do you want to have 5 years at an executive level? Again, some districts said they wanted 10 years of experience at an executive level. That's going to reduce your applicant pool. So 3 to 5 years at, say, executive level. Is that an assistant superintendent? Yes. Is that a director of whatever? The board needs to kind of discuss that and we'll decide what those.
Is it a principal?
Right. Minimum qualifications are. In some of the desired qualities, you might want to say you want a superintendent from a district or an applicant from a district that has more than 20,000 students. Do you want to consider an applicant in some of, Florida and Texas has the largest school districts in the world. The United States, we know that. You'll get a lot of applicants from school districts, successful superintendents, successful with 4,000 kids or 5,000 or 8,000.
Big leap for you guys.
Yeah. If you're some of the larger districts that say we want an applicant from a district that has at least 150,000 students, you're going to be very limited. So those preferred qualities or qualifications we would look at. With that, we would advertise. We have 5 kind of arenas or venues that we like to advertise in. They're very productive with applicants. To name a couple, of course, Ed Week, Top School Jobs, AASA. We have 2 diversity type organizations. So we have 5 groups that we would advertise in. Their typical advertisement period is 30 days for a certain rate. You can do 60 days and more or less double that rate. So you look at your advertisement window. As those applications come in, we will send those applications to our, typically they would come to me because we like to try to keep HR departments out of it so they're not accused of holding or encouraging applications or whatever. So the advertisement would say applications come to me. I would then share them with our contact who will disseminate those immediately to the board members. We send all applications, even one who does, an applicant that doesn't meet the minimum, we're going to send them simply for the transparency. Open, here's what the board looked, here's every applicant, and it went to the board. Some districts might say at that point they would like to have some community input to maybe screen all the applicants and submit the board forward with 10 to 8 people for further consideration. Some districts have stayed away from that for various reasons, but that can affect the timeline and extend it if you want to have that type of group. Some of the issues with that group might be in a district that is 70 miles long. Do you leave people out? Do you cause hard feelings? Who do you bring in? So that screening committee might be something for the board to consider. After the applicants are all in, the board then at some point would say, do we want to have a group of semi-finalists, maybe 6 to 8 persons that we can work with to develop questions for the board, from each board member, 5 questions.
1 question from each board member.
1 question from each board member, there's 5 questions. And the quote, the, say, 8 semifinalists or 6 that you pick, they respond to those 5 questions, 2 in writing, no more than 500 words, so you get a feel for their writing ability, and you want 3 a video response, so you see how they address where they are in front of a camera. Or you can have 3 written, 2 video. With those results in, we typically give the candidates a weekend to do that. Then the board would say, okay, from these 6 to 7 semifinalists, here are the 3 finalists we want to bring on site for interviews. We have an arrival date for any out-of-area candidates. The first day is typically a day of the board sitting as a total body interviewing each finalist. That evening, you potentially could have a community meet and greet in the center of Brevard, where the community, come one, come all, can come and meet the candidates. The candidates do a brief 5 to 8 minute intro, and then it's really your community going around to each station and a brief conversation with each candidate. After that evening, and during that evening, we'll have an avenue by which the community can provide input on each of the finalists. We are able then to get that to the board members by the next morning, which is your second day of interviews, where you'll interview each of the finalists one-on-one. Of course, your board interview on the first day, where the finalists interview the board as a total body, that is open to the public. We recommend it's, put on your website and so forth.
Live stream, YouTube.
Live stream. The second day, though, where you interview one-on-one, that is not open to the public. It is simply, as it says, it's a one-on-one interview where you each will interview each of the finalists. And then after that, typically the next week is your board meeting to select the next superintendent.
Could you put something together with all of that
Yeah.
that gets us in?
That's why he.
We just want to make sure we're on the right track on that.
That sounds about right.
So
Yeah, I mean, I like all of it.
How long would it take you to possibly put that all together, get that to us to just kind of give an eye, and then, because we have January 24th, is our board meeting that we.
Oh, it'll be
We
before
have
the
to be before
24th.
that, for
Sure.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, today is what, Tuesday?
Yeah, today's the 9th.
Oh, I could probably have you something by next Monday.
is that okay with you guys? Yeah. So if you have it to us by next Monday, can we just give a thumbs up or
Do we
minor
need to have a
changes?
special meeting, or?
I don't want to try to, I've been wearing them out with special meetings, they're ready to kill me.
Do it on the 24th.
So,
But if we can't
if
vote
we
till
can,
24th.
if we can just give you our
That's still-
suggestions, and as long as they're not outside the box, we can just
You
formulate
can,
something.
you can certainly provide us some input if there's a conflict or if there's something. Now, some of you may have trips already planned that you can't move away from. I will say this, when you look at the calendar and you approve it, because we do like formal approval of the calendar, the dates you set for the interviews need to be locked in.
Right.
Yeah.
Because these
Right.
people are applying and blocking their calendar. Maybe a forum would change, maybe something along the way might change, but those interview dates we have to really protect, so you need to make sure everyone's here for that whole time frame of that.
So is everybody okay, if I may? Mr. Vogel, you had-
Yeah, I just had one thing we really need to clarify is the forums. First, I think, would 3 community forums be all right, one in each of the 3 areas of the
Yeah.
county? And what we like to do is have them at a high school. And we have people can join online also.
Well, it depends on if they
want to
have
do
the
that.
capacity at that
And
school.
I did talk to the
Okay.
IT people, they do
One
it.
of the issues we have is that Viera is very well attended because it's there.
Right.
But when we go to 3, we usually go like north, central, south. The problem is that many of the beach residents don't get the access.
Well, I even thought
Because-
about do we do for north, central, south, and then,
That's
Because
typically
what I
when
was
they
going to
do that
say
town
is,
halls and
there
stuff.
is-
We can do
if
4, I
you can
mean, we
do
just need to
4,
know.
because Beachside is like its own world, once you get
Okay.
over there, right? They're a different community, and they won't come this way, most of them. They'll go online and stuff, but I think it would be appropriate to let him choose what Beachside he's got.
Okay, so we'd have 4 of those.
So the beachside location they always use is satellite because it's central.
Okay, what we can do is Tammy, if you could get us, or we might be working with Russ on this, what we need are the 4 high schools, and we'd like to work in the media centers, and we'd want to make sure there was a technology person there that could, people, when we advertise these, that they can come, how they join online. And then we need Russ or someone there so he can get the information from that. We do all the recording and the follow-up. We'll count on 4.
Basically, I'm just going to throw this out there.
Pardon?
My gut feeling is that these are going to be attended,
Got it.
unlike
Okay.
a lot of other things we do.
Right.
And when there was town halls that were happening, we have theaters in a lot of these high schools. And
You had
that's where
what?
they were hosted, theaters.
Oh, theaters.
Or seating. And there's technology in there, and I'm sure they'll confirm that, but I don't know if a media center will be large enough.
We can kind of gauge that. We've had, we're really flexible on it. We like to have people working in teams. We have a protocol which we use, is very successful.
They
We
kind of
that.
do some group work.
Some group work, and it takes 1 hour. We don't mind how
In and
many
out.
people come.
I thought it might be better just to do the face-to-face for the forums and then have the online survey.
Okay, we can do that if we need to do that.
Just do the 4 forums face-to-face and then the online survey would kind of be the technology of it.
Okay?
Okay.
I'm fine with doing that.
If you-
That's all right with the board.
If it's okay with the board, I would like Gene to be able to choose what beach side.
Yeah,
She
we don't
said
have a
usually
problem.
it's satellite, but it's his majority. He's got a large beach
That's
community.
not true, Mr. Susan.
What I'd like to do is have maybe Russ and Tammy tell us what 4 you want us to go to. And we'll just count on doing those.
You tell us what schools
live
and we
only.
show
You tell
up.
It's
us-
going to depend on what the other schools are. You want to have enough of a gap.
I think Russ and Tammy can set
Right,
those.
okay, let's set that up.
Chair
Now-
Sessom, what I'll do on this initial draft calendar is just do maybe a 3-week window for the community forums and the online survey. And that way, as we kind of develop the sites to go to, we can plug those in. But at least
It'll
give
say
you
Forum
this
1, Forum
initial-
2,
Now,
Forum 3.
Yeah.
so, that sounds great. When are you thinking, technically, tentatively, that would begin?
It'd have to be in February, John, right?
Yeah,
February 1st?
Well, we're not sure.
Or whenever,
Yeah.
that first week of February?
first or second week of
Sooner.
February, I think we try to get that
All of
done.
February, all of March, all of April, right?
Right.
That's 90 days. Do we need all of May, or can we?
Well, he's going to look at your current board agenda so that we can see when you already have meetings that we can
Okay.
plug in key
Yeah.
decision points. He's going to look at when we could have the interviews based on your graduation dates, things like that. And then we want to back up from there where we could do the semifinalists and build in a week and a half for that. And so he'll build in all of these
And the
pieces
only reason I
and give you a
ask-
draft.
The only reason I ask is because what I would like to do as part of the message out that we're doing this is I'm going to work with Russ on getting like the chairman of the EDC and some of the local large, possibly the L3 Harrises and Northrop Grummons, to be part of a message of we are together in Brevard and we are looking forward to your application. Does that make sense to you? So that we can also be a part of that. And I wanted all of that to lock down on the day that we announced our plans. And so that might be something. So that way we show the unity of this county.
The other thing is important is we need to find out how you want to do the internal input. We can do, first of all, teachers. Do you want to have us to work with the Teachers Association to have them sponsor a teacher event? Do you want us to have an open focus group? Do you want us to work with the Administrative Association, have them do a focus group? And
Do you want them all at
support group?
one?
Do you want them, right, do you want us to have those 3 organizations do those? Do you want us to have a student focus group? If you want that, what suggestion we have is we work with Russ and Tammy and we do it online.
Those crazy
So
kids,
we
they
don't
always
bring
want to be
the
on.
students
Yeah.
in.
The
We'll do
students
that.
will be the hardest group to bring in from all across.
So we wouldn't
because-
have to
So that's why we do the virtual
We'll
with
do
us,
it
right?
virtual with them on that, and we'll send the students the protocol ahead of time, so they'll have the protocol ahead of time. And we will do that, we would do that in district office, so we'll gel that in too.
So our teacher administrative and support group would be virtual as well?
I think you might
I
want to
think
do
that
them in person.
Face to face, those 3 would be face to face.
Wait, I'm not hearing that.
Yeah, can you do both? Because
Yeah.
again, we're a very large county. We all come out at different times of the day, workload, kids, things like that. They're going to want to be involved. I wouldn't want to restrict it only to face to face. I have a question too. I think it's really important that our staff is included on the survey.
Yes.
So is the
Yeah,
survey
no,
going to give them an
right, for
option to
everybody.
identify
Right.
Is it the
Yes.
same survey, and they're gonna be able to identify if they're an
Yes.
employee? or-
Yes, it has at the end sort of what category do you fall in, and it's like parent, guardian, current or former employee, community member, student, other, and they pick from among those choices.
And we can, you host that depending on the format you want to use, but we also have a provision for zip code on it too, if you want to have that, so you can identify what zip code they're coming from. That's, some of the districts want to do that.
So that's probably very good.
Now, what we would do is this, we can send you a draft of a generic survey, which we've used, but we need someone to kind of look over it. I talked to Dr. Feedy about that.
See what's
And kind of
relative,
See what's
what's-
relative, and then have the board finally make an approval on that. And we would do that pretty quick. So I don't know if that, Russ would be the key person, he might have to farm it out to someone else, but
Russ is the one who coordinates our parent survey. And
Okay.
Sounds like you, Russ.
Yeah, we do surveys, we got you covered.
If I may, I know this might be a little bit outside the box, but if we can put together a community leader and kind of elected official box to put
Sure.
input.
Yeah.
Because we are, unlike many other counties, the companies that we do business with here are very powerful, so they may want a little bit of input, if that's okay with the board. I think that that would help out. So maybe like the Space Coast League of Cities leadership, along with some of like Grumman, Boeing.
So you'll just add them to the
Yeah.
boxes to check.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll check, I'll get with you guys on the contact information.
And I don't mind coming back on January 24th. I mean, I'll get the draft, the initial draft to Tammy. She can get it to y'all, look over it, and I'll be back on the 24th. And if your board meeting will allow just a little new item for discussion or old item,
workshop.
whatever and just get
And
your
I can work with you
input.
before the 24th on the survey, because we'll try to coordinate it with your strategic plan. You have those 4 goals, so we'll try to kind
We're
of,
gonna, just so you know, we may have to come in at 9 on the 24th because we have those policies that we're getting ready to work on. We have this, we have some 2 hours.
I think we have an experience.
Only one policy.
And we have an expulsion, so just plan on kind of that whole day, you guys. We'll look at the calendar and stuff like that. But no, that sounds good. And then the idea would be that we would start the first week or second week of February if the 24th is good.
Yes.
And then Russ, we would announce here we are together, going out together, message as that gets sent out. Good.
And what I'll do too, Matt, I'll get Russ, we have a few items we'd recommend you put on your superintendent search portal.
Yeah.
So once you kind of do the kickoff and it goes out on the website, you know, your Facebook, wherever else you advertise it, then we have some suggestions on what you'll put on that website, the search website, on your homepage as we progress through each section.
Sounds good.
And actually, as the applications come in, we post each application on that website as well.
So one of the things that Dr. Schiller said, it makes sense, is when we start taking those applications, should probably be after we take the input from the community.
Oh, yeah.
Because we don't want them to feel
don't
like
have the
I just want to make sure.
you know, we don't even advertise until the input drives the advertisement.
And are you guys going to be making the same suggestions to all the other school districts? They may
Each
go crazy
district,
as well.
based on what they want, is different. So
Okay.
we've never done 2 searches the same. They're all different based on what the districts want.
Perfect.
Great.
the last time you all had very general minimum requirements, and that allowed people with non-traditional backgrounds to apply for the position. It was a master's degree, basically, and 10 years higher level experience, so be thinking about that also. And then also, Russell will be thinking, because when we advertise this, we want to highlight some of the successes of the district and really promote it through a one-page advertisement. We'll work
Like a
with Russell on that,
promotional
too.
piece, and you may already have some promotional
Yeah,
things that you.
promotional things, so we want to try to do that. And we don't have time
Bill will work with
for
you.
a brochure to put it on that, but I know you have things on your website that will.
And video.
We refer to, right, video.
Things like that we can connect to the advertisement to help people understand where the job is.
What do you think, John? Anything else?
Do you have any thoughts on if the board would want any kind of screening committee, or just let the board take all the applications? After some evaluation, you come back and the board identifies a few semifinalists, if you want that.
I thought about
I would
this.
prefer to do it ourselves
I
personally.
would make the argument that we want decision ourselves.
Yes.
I also think that there might be an opportunity for not an official screening process, but if it's okay with you guys, that we include some people to kind of look at those and give us some suggestions. And I'll be honest with you, if you guys don't want that, then if it's okay if I grab like head of EDC and some of those.
You can do whatever you,
Do it, you want individually?
In your
Yeah,
own
do it individually.
I mean, I'll do that.
Right.
I just want to make sure that they feel like they're part of the process.
But now, when we have our portal that's going to house all the superintendent search stuff, is there, once we have the applicants, do you guys ever do an opportunity for the public to do input, or would it just be up to them to go look at them and then email us?
it's up to them. No, we don't have a
Right.
formal input. It's up to them to look at them and give you input. But I do want to be clear, when we ask the community for input and when we ask the board to identify semifinalists or anything like that, we never, ever ask the board or anyone else to rank candidates, because we want you to be as broad-minded and open-minded as you can be for as
Okay.
long as you can, because we don't want you locked in on my top candidate. We don't need anyone in the newspaper being the front runner. That doesn't serve anyone's purposes.
And Schiller just told me, he says, having people review it with you is stupid, basically, because what they're going to do is the league or whatever, so.
You just got to be real careful with that kind of stuff.
You're going to get plenty of input anyway.
That's fine.
And two, as the applications come in, it is my process to get it to Tammy first. She has a day or 2 days to get it to the board, because we want the board to see everything first, and then maybe a day after that, we post those to the website. So your community can see applicants as they come in, and we always number the applicants, applicant number 1 through whatever, 28, 26, 25. So as we kind of move through the process,
Is there a fear at all of people not applying because of that?
we
exposure?
say in our in public records, as you know, it's public record.
Sure.
And on our advertisement, our bottom, we have a little highlighted section that says, Florida's open to public records, your application and all supporting materials will be public upon receipt.
Okay.
So as soon as I get them, even if the next day, if I get a call from someone that says, pull my application,
Yeah.
I'll
Sorry,
say,
yeah.
we'll pull it. But if I get a public records request, I have
Right.
to respond,
No, I understand.
I receipt.
See, we,
Now, in Florida is at a disadvantage on that issue, if that's what you're referencing. That doesn't, but anybody who's coming to Florida needs to be prepared for that, so.
and I understand that. The reason is that.
Yeah, welcome to open government.
We give them, the applicants, the code words and names and stuff like that, because if they got exposed, the companies, they have all kinds of code words. They don't names. They don't have, like, it's Project Phoenix. It's
Yeah,
Project
private industry can do that.
But it's not us. So I was just, the reason is I
Yeah.
know it exists, that we will be limiting the amount of applicants based on that, but that's what the rules are, so that's what we do.
I'd like to comment on that, because we talk with a lot of people from out of state, and what I tell them is this. First of all, the ones that apply from out of state feel they have a really good chance of getting the job. The last thing they want to do with their current boards is go ahead and not say they've applied for a job, and all of a sudden they come up in the top 5.
Yeah, like what
And-
kind of leader is that if they don't warn them?
That's right.
That's exactly right, because they're not going to be the only one named. They're eventually going to come out if they're in the top list of it. And I said, you have to be open and honest with your school board.
That's right.
And we don't want, if they don't want to be open and honest with the school board, they may not want to apply.
Well, and we've had people who think
Yeah.
when we say, like John said, the disclaimer's on there, the minute you give it to us, it's public record, it's very clear, we say Florida public records law, but other states have different public records law, and in their mind, they're thinking their own state's public records law. They're not thinking Florida. So then when their name hits the paper, this is an example of when John says, they will call and say, withdraw, pull my application. He'll say, I can do that. It's still a public record, and so you'll see applicant number 12 withdrawn, and for various reasons. Later down the road, when we start talking about background checks and things like that, you may see some additional people withdraw. When things surface and we say this is going to be made public, just make sure you know, nobody has a flawless background. Nobody does. There's something on everybody's background. Some of it's real, and some of it is easily explained.
And our teachers-
But everybody will have something.
Our teachers
It's
union
very
also-
rare that we have a clean background check.
It'll limit your pool.
And if I could say one more thing, numbering, let's say the first application that comes in, the complete application, because I don't post incomplete. The board has set some parameters on what they want in the application. We'll talk about that later. But the first applicant comes in that's complete, I'll send it to Tammy, she'll get it to you. Applicant number 1, Dr. Bill Vogel. We number those as we get to the end to arrange the order in which the board will interview. Some applicants are very insistent on being the last one to interview. We simply say you'll interview in the order in which your application came in. So if the Brevard board says we're going to interview 3 finalists, you pick number 2, you pick number 12, and you pick number 21. You'll interview number 2 first, 12 second, because some people really get intense on, I must be the last person interviewed. I want to leave
Or the
last-
first.
Or the first.
That's not-
It's by number. So that's how you'll interview. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? John will be developing a timeline to bring back to you. I'm going to do some things related to the survey to get back to you, and you're going to talk to him about some promotional materials. So hopefully we'll have all of those before the 24th meeting to kind of move things forward.
Are we still in a reasonable time period to approve those things on the 24th and still get this done by the end of May?
Yeah, he'll build that in. Yeah.
So,
By the end of May. Yes, ma'am.
and what are you guys willing to wait till the end of July if we needed to? And is that right?
Pardon?
That direction, are we looking at July 1?
If you want, whenever somebody starts, that's up after that. It really doesn't matter. Once you make the selection,
Some people will be, depending on the job they have that they're leaving, they're going to need some time to close some things up. Right now, some of them are prepared to come tomorrow, and others of them may need some time. So that would be when you interview them one-on-one, or even when you interview them as a group. That can be one of the questions. When would you be able to start, so that you guys have an idea?
I think the idea of letting them know, though, that we are open to the.
Yeah, there's some flexibility there. That's actually very helpful.
Flexible start date.
It's very helpful.
You're just going to have to stay around.
I mean, you want someone, I would think they would want to start before the school year, but I mean, they're just not available until September 1st, or not available September 1st.
That becomes an issue with him.
the other thing though is everything is pretty well
But
set.
this is a fluid process.
I know.
That's what they're telling you. It's very fluid.
Good.
Everything is pretty well set. You've got your budget set, you've got everything set for the start of the year, so someone coming in is not going to be able to make a lot of changes anyway. They're going to be observing. Andrea, I have an observation,
Let's hear it.
okay?
Can I ask one question?
Go ahead, John, you do that before I get back.
Matt, I get a feeling the board probably wants to kind of sift through semifinalists first.
Sift through.
As
Well,
in,
Okay,
Let's
we'll
say
read
you-
every one.
Say you get 25 applications, do you want to jump right to 3 or 4 finalists, or do you want to get 6 or 8 to respond?
Yeah, I
to
really like the
questions?
video
Okay, so
written
we'll add-
response.
okay.
idea,
Thank you.
but I don't
that's
want
something he has to build in the
25.
schedule, that's why he's asking.
Yeah.
He'll build that into the timeline. Observation, Bill, let's go.
You
He's
know what?
smiling, so I can't wait to hear what it
Well,
is.
first of all, I learned a lot about Brevard. I thought I knew everything about Brevard because I looked on your website, but I learned an awful lot. I took a lot of notes on it too, so I feel really good about calling people and telling them about all the great things that are going on and
He's
all the
our chief
potential.
recruiter, just so you
Okay.
know.
But one thing I feel really good about is when all of you were talking about all of these areas, everybody was in agreement. I didn't hear anybody say, oh, no, that's not important, and that's not it. And I think that's going to be one of the most important things, if not the most important things, that needs to happen when you're hiring a new superintendent. Because anybody coming in here wants to see a team working together
Right.
and be part of that team. So that's the observation I got this afternoon. So I see you all as a very good working team. And when people call me and they say, well, all this happened there, I say, well, I just sat through 3 hours with the board, and I thought they worked great together. And they're all in agreement on what the
I
priorities
like
are.
you.
Thank
You come
you.
every week.
So we'll see you
Are
again
you
on the
looking for a job?
24th, and we'll be working behind the scenes between now and then.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Can we